All right, so this is the continuation, part 2 of Conquering Your Fears. I don't know what happened. The video cut off and my media in the car switched to music. Got a mind of its own. But anyway, we're going to continue. So that's why that abruptly shut off. I'll label this video part 2 so I can continue where I left off. So yeah, as I was saying, some people have fears of severing ties and getting out of bad relationships. And let me say this. It doesn't matter if you've been in a relationship for a long period of time. It doesn't matter even if you have children. If a relationship has run its course and it's toxic and you're forcefully staying in it for all the wrong reasons, that's an insecurity, which is a form of fear that you must overcome. You must be able to master, okay? So that could be other fears that people aren't conquering, okay? Here's another one. And as we get older, this becomes even a deeper reality as it was in our early quest on our spiritual journey. Fear of death. Okay, this is a big one. I know a lot of people, majority of people, a high percentage of people say on the surface, oh no, they don't have no fear of death. I think death keeps you humble, and it's okay to be humbled by it, but no, we shouldn't be terrified or fear it to the point where it can create serious mental, spiritual, and emotional blockages. But let's be real. I don't care how long you've been treading the path. Let's not act like there's not nights where you wait, especially as you get older, where you lay up at night thinking about the unknown when it comes to death. Okay? We're not trying to speed up the process, but at the same token, one of the things we really strive to understand on this path in our learning and study is demystifying death. Right? This is really a driving fear on the flip side that keeps people into a lot of these fucked up religions that are out there. Because a lot of people who are controlled by fear stay in these religions in hopes that if they, follow all the rules and regulations and follow everything that they're told they need to do, that they don't have to worry. They got some pie in the sky waiting for them down the road, this, that, or the other. And that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. Okay? But as I've said many times before over the years, even going back to before you were, or any of us were so-called on this path of the occult, the left-hand path, that was a driving force. I know it was for me as a young teenager, understanding this thing called life after death. Okay? This was a big factor. And as I grew older, I just felt like I wasn't getting credible answers. I was getting fairy tale myths and philosophies and stories of this, that, and the other to try to explain what they couldn't explain. Okay? But if we're honest, as I said, before you came on this path, I don't care if you were Christian, Muslim, Jew, Buddhist, this, that, or the other. That, for just about all of us, was one of the motivating factors of why we chose some path of spirituality. Okay? That's fact. And that can't be negated. I think what happens is, though, as you grow and evolve and you get on the path of the occult and the left-hand path, and you start to study the mysteries of the void, the abyss, and this thing called death and the afterlife, it's the finality, I think, of it that starts to hit you. It's not the fact of not understanding it and the fact that it's gonna happen. I don't think that's the case. And again, I can only speak from experience and what I've experienced and what I see and what I'm feeling from what I'm saying. I think sometimes it's just that abrupt finality of it. Like, at some point, it's all just going to stop in the blink of an eye or in the snap of a finger. And again, that should be a telltale sign to tell us how precious this thing called life is. Okay? And how we should never take it for granted. Now, you hear that saying, and it's true. Here today, gone tomorrow. We just don't know. And I think it's not that we don't understand the process to a degree. I just think the day, the moment, and the time, we don't know. And that feeling of uncertainty or the unknown is what can get us a little fearful. Okay? Now let's be honest. Okay? This, and I know, and I'm sure people listening know, this is a lot of things that run through people's minds in regards to this subject. And I've noticed as I've gotten a bit older, those thoughts cross my mind a little bit more. Now, obviously, you can say, well, you're getting older, this, that, or the other. Or maybe it could be any of those things. Or it could be through my work, I'm uncovering a lot of info about, and maybe those influx of thoughts are just coming to get a greater or a deeper understanding. I mean, I've pondered a lot of that. But that, too, is a key contributing factor or fear that people struggle to overcome. And this also will explain sometimes why somebody goes back and runs back into, say, somebody who came on the left-hand path of the occult was a Christian. Sometimes they hit this breaking point or fork in the road, and as I've said many times before, they go back harder into the church, harder into being a Christian, because of what we call this shock value that they tapped into, that they couldn't put into perspective, a fear that brought up a thought that troubled them to the point where they've tried as hard as they could to figure it out, but they, instead of figuring it out, they wanted a way out. And they find their way out, and they go back into the church and talk about how they're saved, this, that, and the other, and how, we've all seen those stories over the years. But that's the damage that could happen if you're not preparing yourself, if you're still getting stuck from whatever system you came to before you came onto the path of the occult or the left-hand path, until you just break away completely those chains, nothing will change. Okay? So these are a lot of fears. These are a lot of anxieties and struggles that people have. Now, let's talk about fears an individual has picked up through childhood trauma. Okay? I told you there's going to be layers of this, and I try to do the best I can with the time allotted without getting, too beyond what we're supposed to be focusing on. But over time, what starts to happen as people start to develop their niche and their way on this path, sometimes things can be going smooth, and you get what I like to call an intrusion of different thoughts, right? We hear this term. And let me give you an example. And this could create doubts, which again, though these things are slightly different, but these aspects are connected to fear. I see this all the time, and I'm sure a lot of you watching and listening can attest to this. Why is it, for an example, when a lot of people come on a spiritual path like this and they make the intention to change their lives, they make the intention to do different, they make the intention to improve themselves, why is it all of a sudden, out of the blue, people start calling, and not productive people, just people you ain't heard from in a while, people, that went off the radar, and then, you could be a dude, it could be some female, or females calling you out the blue, offering you pussy. It could even be vice versa. It could be a female dude, some dude you might have been with or wanted to be with. All of a sudden, all these crazy shit keeps happening. And all these things that appear on the surface to be opportunities, but when you really look at it hard, they're actually distractions to get you off the path. And then what can happen is the individual starts to second guess themselves or doubt themselves. Is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Because this is a very challenging path that's going to challenge your ideologies, the way you think, your approach to things. So sometimes a person starts to doubt themselves. Is this what I should be doing? Is this the right thing to be into? Because sometimes shit will sneak up on you. As I said, you get that intrusion of thoughts. Okay? And it could severely influence that on a multitude of levels. Okay? So, look, as I've said before, you always must be sharp and be ready when things come down the pipe, whether it's changes or something that doesn't appear to be what it is on the surface. It's very easy to get wrapped up in your emotions and react to shit when you don't have all the information and the facts, okay? So a lot of these fears, a lot of these phobias, they create problems because they become blockages when we try to go carry out our ritual work. I see this all the time. Okay? So, you have to be honest with yourself. And ask yourself, are there certain things you still fear and you struggle with and you can't get past, whatever that may be? Okay? Because one thing we do with fears on this path, we don't bury them, sweep them under the rug, suppress them, or try to pray them away, or puff the magic dragon and all that shit is gone. See, one thing we do that's unique, and sometimes when I tell this to people, they look crazy, like, why would you want to do that? Real simple. We intentionally bring up these things about ourselves that we fear. And we do that for the sole purpose of completely eradicating those fears through our ritual work. Okay? So that's how, serious and focused you need to be, to the point where you're willing to intentionally bring these fears up to face them. Look, it's like I said many times before, when a shaman initiates somebody into becoming a shaman or a high priest, a student, or an individual that's being raised up to be a shaman, I always use that example because that initiate, and you'll see most shamans do it through hallucinogens, whether it's ayahuasca or mushrooms. It's usually some form of a hallucinogen to tap into that individual's subconscious and bring all of those personal fears out. And your mind has stored these fears there. And this is why sometimes it's subconsciously, because you're not really locked in and you're not really focusing in on the surface, and that's for a reason. Okay? So this is very important for us to understand, because if we, through our shadow work, uncover these things and we start to know them, now we can design ritual work to conquer them and destroy them. Okay? That's the process here, people. That's how this works. And once you're able to have the ability to do that, okay? I don't want to ever say that this path is easy, but I can tell you this: things start to change. Things do become simplified. Things do seem to flow a bit more consistently, and it seems to be extended periods of no drama to none. Okay? But like I said, man, fear is a motherfucker. And they've been attacking us through fear for years. I mean, now, all you gotta look is when you turn on the news, everything is the war, Palestine, Israel, World War III gonna pop up, this, that, the other. That's another toxic fear that you must eradicate if you have it. I call it the conspiracy theory fears. Okay? Can we stop the bullshit? Okay? Just about 90% of conspiracy theories or more, I think the number's even higher, that's put out there. How many times, look, depending on your age. But my age, I've been hearing that doomsday, end of the world, this shit going back to the 80s. And I remember the first time, it was a bunch of nutheads saying 1992 would be the end. I mean, 1999, Y2K. The list goes on and on and on. We know this. We've seen this. Okay? And it makes you think, and you got to say to yourself, what kind of God, again, wouldn't have control over these things? So the question sometimes, comes, if a storm is coming, who's responsible for creating the storm? You got to ask those questions, because they'll dance around it and give you some hocus pocus answer. We know, according to your Bible, that's facts. We know it's your God. But any of these aforementioned things, you must address them if any of those things apply to you. Okay? And it's all rooted in the emotion of fear. So once you have that ability to question, to not be afraid, that's when things will start to change for you. All right? So I would leave you with this. I would ask yourself, here's a little suggestion and an exercise you could do. Try each day to take one particular thing that makes you feel a certain way, or maybe you're angry, maybe you're this, that, or the other. But follow those instructions. Identify, the emotion that might be triggering that in relation to how you feel. Any of these things could be trigger points for what I've talked about. All right. Again, I don't want to make this too winded. I'll label this one Part 2 due to the fact the camera cut off on the first one, I believe at the 15-minute mark or something. But I'll check it out. All right. Other than that, that's what I got for you. Don't forget to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI, tier 3. That's the tier you want to join. Don't forget the Primordial Chaos podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget our big event at the end of the month with the rituals that we do on Patreon. Every month we have a group ritual. And as I said, when you do join tier 3, you can participate in that ritual. But again, the direct link to the Patreon page, tier 3, that's the tier you want to sign up for. That gives you access to all the classes and that group ritual that we do every month. The link to the podcast, my email address, everything, all the aforementioned that I talked about in the beginning of the first video and the end of this one is in the description box of this video. Again, don't forget to book your 2024 yearly forecast reading. That's happening from now until about the first week in February. And believe me, people have already started signing up in the last few days of me just putting it out there. So it is busy, and I'm not just saying that for a clickbait for you to order yours, but it is busy, and there more than likely will be at least a few days to a week wait at the rate that it's going now, and that'll probably pick up even further. All right, so you can reach out to me for any of those aforementioned at my email address, khnum19@gmail.com. Other than that, that's all I got for you guys. I will post these videos as soon as I get a chance, all right? Infernal blessings.